So if you've been around the interwebs for more than 2 minutes and tried to look up something with nutrition, you've probably stumbled upon fad diets like carnivore, paleo, keto, vegan, vegetarian, Whole30, you name it, right? You've probably seen supplement companies or brands that try to sell you their food saying if you buy our food, you will lose weight. Which you're not going to find in any of our app and any of our programs. We are not connected with a supplement company or a food company because it keeps us really honest with our opinions about what works and what doesn't work. And so when it comes to fad diets, I'll start off by saying I'm not, objectively against all people all the time, like never doing a fad diet. That's not what I'm saying. I think there's a time and the place, and I think for some people the black and white can be really, really helpful. Let's take, for example, like a carnivore diet, or even an extreme example of the lion diet, which is an extreme example of the carnivore diet. There are people, cancer patients, people with really severe autoimmune issues that have really, really, really benefited from something like a carnivore diet or a lion diet. And it's hard to argue with both the anecdotal and scientific evidence we have showing that. That being said, I think the misstep is whenever they say it works for this person or this population, so therefore it works for everyone, right? Or everyone must do it. I think that's a misstep. So, for example, like avoiding gluten, right? If you're a celiac or have any kind of gluten intolerance, then yeah, don't eat gluten. that's a little silly. But for most people who don't have celiac or don't have any kind of intolerance, then it's totally fine to have gluten. And so one of the things that I just want to caution everybody of when it comes to fad diets is not falling into a logical fallacy of appeal to authority or appeal to the masses or any kind of logical fallacy. If you don't know logical fallacies, Google Platonic logical fallacies. I think it was Plato, Socrates. Anyway, Greek logical fallacies. I'm sorry, Father Andy, my old philosophy professor, I forget him. But anyway, don't fall into a logical fallacy when it comes to this stuff. Anyway, I digress. And so why do they work though? Because obviously they work for a lot of people. So, but why do they work? And so ultimately, what metric are we tracking? If we're tracking, fat loss and muscle growth, well, then there's a couple of factors there. Let's just stick on the carnivore one because that's popular right now. Why does carnivore work for fat loss and muscle growth? Well, for a few reasons. For the muscle growth is obvious. If all you're eating is protein and animal-based foods, you're getting a lot of protein. And so that's going to obviously aid for muscle growth, building muscle. And if your only source of kind of energy is protein and fats, you're totally eliminated carbohydrates. Most of the time, that means you're consuming less calories than you're using, which is going to result in fat loss. Part of the reason this happens kind of a bit more naturally with carnivore is because protein is it's called a high thermic effective food. Protein is the hardest macronutrient to digest. And so because of that, you feel really full, which is why we believe in a protein-forward approach to eating. If you've watched our stuff, we say eat protein. You need to eat protein, 0.7 to 1 gram per goal weight per day. That's going to be like 100 to 150 grams of protein a day for the normal person. And so we want to make sure, light just went off, whatever. We want to make sure that you're getting enough protein, and we really believe in that. And so because there's a high thermic effect, because you're eating a lot of protein, and amino acids, which make up proteins, don't easily convert into body fat, and you've totally eliminated carbs, odds are you're in a caloric deficit, which is what's causing the fat loss. Also, if you totally cut out carbs, it means you've also cut out like donuts and pastries and ice cream and candies and sodas and beer and alcohol and all these things. And so once again, those are all things that have a lot of calories, which will lead to weight gain or at least maintenance. And then also, those are a lot of highly inflammatory foods that just aren't terribly good for you anyway. They don't do a lot of positive things. And so sometimes that helps a lot of people's hormonal imbalances, energy levels. But that being said, I think it's a misstep to just say all fruits and veggies are bad for you. Because there's a copious amount of studies, both anecdotal and scientific, showing that we need fruits and veggies, right? We need fiber for proper gut health. And so once again, when it comes to fad diets, if you want to try one, like, cool. My encouragement to you would be um, treat it as an elimination diet, right? So go carnivore, go full on carnivore for like 2, 3, 4 weeks, cut out everything but meat, right? And then add in one food at a time, right? One food at a time. Maybe it's fruit, maybe it's a vegetable, maybe it's a whole grain of some kind, but only one. And then add it for like a week. See how your body reacts. See how your body responds. If it responds positively or at least neutral, you know, like, okay, cool, like this is fine. Then add one more thing, and then add one more thing. And then by doing that, and by only adding like a thing one or 2 weeks at a time, you can quickly identify if something makes you feel gassy or bloated, right? Or if something makes you feel sick, or if something makes you feel sluggish. And then you can say, okay, not that this food is bad for every single person, but my body does not respond well to it. So I know I can avoid this in general, right? And so this is the way we typically approach most nutrition at HyperFit with all our coaches. It has to be on a case-by-case and individual basis, right? So it's really, really important that if you're interested in a fad diet, know that the thing that causes the weight loss or muscle growth, or let's talk fat loss primarily, is the caloric deficit. But at the same time, it doesn't mean just because it works for one group of people, it has to work for every single person. And a lot of times they're really extreme and aren't sustainable. So that's the fear there. So if you're going to do a fat loss or a fad diet, you know, of some kind, I would encourage you to treat it as an elimination diet. At the very least, if you're not interested in it, just know that there are evangelists for these things, which once again we want to be careful about, because the only thing we're evangelists here at HyperFit is Jesus, because he's God, and that's the good news we're trying to spread. And so keep all this in mind. If you have any questions about any of this, let me know. Hope it helps. God bless.